journey begins with a mystery that spans the centuries, the Holy Grail. This enigmatic object is more than just a simple religious relic. It's a symbol of spiritual power and transformation. Many stories describe it as the chalice used by Jesus Christ at the Last Supper, while others associate it with the sacred blood. But the real question is, what does the Grail truly represent? And why has it captured the imagination of so many generations? The origins of the Holy Grail legend are shrouded in myths and conflicting interpretations. Some believe that the legend was born in the Middle Ages, popularized by Arthurian romances that speak of the knight's quest for a sacred chalice. Others, however, point to much older roots, connecting the Grail to pagan traditions of divine vessels and sources of eternal life. These narratives suggest that the Grail is a universal symbol, representing the connection between the earthly world and the divine. What makes the Grail fascinating is its ability to transform over time. In some stories, it is described as a physical object, a chalice or cup. In others, it becomes an abstract concept, such as the purity of the soul or the pursuit of self-knowledge. This malleability has allowed the legend to remain relevant, adapting to the beliefs and needs of each era. Among the mysteries surrounding the Grail, one of the most intriguing is its association with Jesus Christ. Some scholars and theorists believe that the Grail is not an object, but a metaphor for the lineage of Jesus. According to these theories, the blood shed by Christ on the cross symbolizes a spiritual continuity passed through his descendants. This challenging idea connects the legend of the Grail to the possibility of a sacred lineage, a secret that may have been kept hidden for centuries. This perspective raises profound questions. If the Grail truly represents a spiritual lineage, what would be its impact on human history? Who would be the guardians of this secret? These questions are not new. They have been fueling debates among historians, theologians, and spiritual seekers for decades. Every piece of evidence discovered, whether in ancient manuscripts or in stories of esoteric traditions, adds a new layer of mystery. The concept of safeguarding the Grail, or protecting a spiritual lineage, also introduces the idea of secret societies. Throughout history, groups such as the Knights Templar and the Rosicrucians have been associated with the custody of profound secrets. But the question remains, were they protecting a physical object, like the sacred chalice, or something much more powerful, a spiritual knowledge that could change the course of humanity? At the heart of this mystery is the figure of Jesus Christ, whose life and teachings shaped Western civilization. However, the official history of Jesus is only part of the picture. Ancient texts, such as the Gnostic Gospels, suggest that there is much more to be discovered about his life and his purpose. These sources hint at a connection between Jesus and a spiritual legacy that transcends traditional religious structures. The search for the Grail is also a powerful metaphor. It reflects the universal quest for truth, enlightenment, and connection with the divine. In a world full of uncertainties and challenges, the Grail offers a symbol of hope and transformation. It reminds us that the spiritual journey is both outward and inward, a quest for union with something greater. Throughout this narrative, we will explore not only the history of the Grail, but also the revolutionary ideas it represents. From theories about Jesus' spiritual lineage to the impact of this idea on secret societies like the Templars, we will delve deep into the mysteries that have shaped our view of the divine. Each detail revealed will bring us closer to understanding the true meaning of the Grail. With that, we embark on the initial journey. The Grail is not just a lost object or a distant symbol. It is an invitation, a call to explore the secrets of the soul, uncover the mysteries of the universe, and seek the truth that connects us all. When we think of the figure of Jesus Christ, we are immediately drawn to the canonical Gospels that shaped the history of Christianity. However, there are parallel stories, hidden in the lines of apocryphal texts and alternative traditions, that shed light on a possible hidden facet of his life. his relationship with Mary Magdalene. What if this relationship was deeper than traditional narratives suggest? What if, instead of a faithful follower, Mary was a spiritual partner and, possibly, the bearer of a sacred lineage? The official Gospels of the Bible portray Mary Magdalene as a central figure, particularly in the resurrection of Jesus. She is described as the first witness of the resurrected Christ, a role that carries great significance. However, her presence in the official texts seems restricted, almost erased, while in the Gnostic Gospels, such as the Gospel of Mary and the Gospel of Philip, she emerges as an intimate disciple and special confidant of Jesus. These sources suggest a relationship that goes beyond master and follower, indicating a spiritual partnership and, possibly, a marital one. The Gospel of Philip in particular contains an enigmatic passage where Mary Magdalene is referred to as Jesus' companion. The word used, which can be translated from Greek as spouse or partner, leaves room for bold interpretations. Could Mary Magdalene have been not only a disciple, but also his wife? Furthermore, could she have been the bearer of a spiritual lineage, connecting humanity to something divine? These ideas challenge traditional narratives and raise profound implications. If Jesus and Mary Magdalene formed a sacred union, it would transform the perception of Christianity as we know it. This hypothesis connects to the idea that the blood shed by Christ was not just a redeeming sacrifice, but also the beginning of a lineage that carries a direct connection with the divine. Would the Holy Grail, then, not be a chalice, but Mary Magdalene herself and her descendants? The consequences of such revelations would have been devastating for the structure of the emerging church. During the first centuries of Christianity, the role of women was systematically diminished, and Mary Magdalene was transformed from a disciple and leader into a figure of moral redemption. The possibility that she could represent a direct line of spiritual connection threatened the patriarchal foundations of institutionalized religion. Historians suggest that, if this lineage did exist, it would have been carefully protected and hidden by dissenting groups. Secret societies such as the Templars and the Cathars could have been the custodians of this secret, risking their lives to preserve a truth that the world was not yet ready to accept. These groups, often persecuted and accused of heresy, may have acted as the guardians of a lineage that symbolized the union between the human and the divine. In addition to religious texts, legends and works of art also suggest this connection. Renaissance paintings, such as those by Leonardo da Vinci, often depict Mary Magdalene alongside Jesus in positions of equality, suggesting a partnership relationship. These artistic details raise the question, are they merely stylistic choices or encoded clues to preserve a larger secret? At the heart of this story is the spiritual impact of this union. If Mary Magdalene was a central figure in Jesus' ministry, her presence redefines the role of women in spirituality. She symbolizes the fusion of the sacred feminine and masculine, a balance that resonates deeply with older spiritual traditions, such as those of Isis and Osiris in Egypt and the divine dualities of Eastern religions. The possible lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene also evokes a journey of reconnection with the divine essence. It's not just about blood or descent, but a call for humanity to remember its sacred nature. This lineage, if true, could be less about a literal genealogy and more about a spiritual inheritance that we all share. However, the question remains, why was this aspect of history so fiercely suppressed? Could it be because a sacred lineage would challenge the centralized authority of the Church, returning to the individual the direct connection with the divine? Or because the idea of an egalitarian spiritual partnership was simply too radical for its time? Regardless of the answer, the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene continues to intrigue and inspire. It invites us to rethink not only the history of Christianity, but also our own beliefs about spirituality and balance. If there is a message to be found here, it might be that unity, whether physical or spiritual, is the true path to enlightenment. Behind the official texts that shaped Christianity, there is a hidden world of forbidden writings, the so-called apocryphal and Gnostic Gospels. These documents offer a fascinating glimpse into a spiritual tradition that challenges conventional narratives, suggesting that original Christianity was much more diverse, mystical, and revolutionary than is often imagined. These texts not only expand the story of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, but also shed light on the possible existence of a hidden spiritual lineage. The Gnostic Gospels, like those of Thomas, Philip, and Mary, were discovered in the mid-20th century in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. These texts reveal an alternative view of Jesus' teachings, emphasizing the search for inner enlightenment and the direct connection with the divine. Unlike the canonical Gospels, which focus on doctrines and dogmas, the Gnostics promote a deeply personal spirituality based on the direct experience of truth. In the Gospel of Thomas, for example, Jesus is portrayed as a wisdom teacher who invites his followers to seek the kingdom of God within themselves. This approach contrasts with religious institutions that often place intermediaries between the individual and the divine. This philosophical difference may explain why these texts were suppressed and labeled as heretical by church leadership. The Gospel of Mary, on the other hand, offers a glimpse into the unique role of Mary Magdalene in the early Christian community. In it, Mary is presented as Jesus' closest disciple, receiving special teachings that others did not understand. This suggests not only a deep spiritual bond between the two, but also the recognition of Mary as a spiritual leader. Her figure transcends the traditional role of follower, becoming a symbol of wisdom and direct connection with the divine. Another fascinating text is the Gospel of Philip, which refers to Mary Magdalene as the companion of Jesus. It describes a relationship of intimacy and partnership, raising the possibility of a shared spiritual lineage. Although the text is fragmented, its symbolic language leaves room for interpretations about a deep link between the sacred masculine and feminine. These texts not only introduce new perspectives on the teachings of Jesus, but they also reveal a fundamental conflict within early Christianity. On one side, there was a mystical and inclusive approach focused on direct spiritual experience. On the other, a growing institutionalization which sought to consolidate power and standardize doctrine. The triumph of the second approach resulted in the marginalization and destruction of Gnostic texts, which were condemned as heresies. However, these lost Gospels did not completely disappear. They were secretly preserved by dissident communities, such as the Gnostics and the Manichaeans, who saw in them a spiritual treasure. Moreover, many of these ideas re-emerged centuries later, influencing esoteric movements like the Templars, the Cathars, and the Rosicrucians. The impact of these hidden texts goes beyond their historical value. They offer a radically different view of spirituality, one that places the individual at the center of the quest for truth. The notion that the divine resides within each person challenges external authority and invites us to seek answers within ourselves. This resonates deeply with the mystical traditions of other cultures, such as Sufism in Islam, yoga in Hinduism, and Taoism in the East. Furthermore, the apocryphal Gospels raise important questions about the official narrative of Jesus' life. If Mary Magdalene was truly his confidant and partner, as these texts suggest, it would imply a more inclusive and balanced view of Christian spirituality. This would also reinforce the idea of a sacred lineage that combines the principles of the masculine and feminine, a symbolic union that resonates with universal spiritual archetypes. The rediscovery of these texts in the 20th century was no coincidence. It happened at a time when the world was more open to exploring alternative traditions and seeking new forms of spirituality. Since then, these writings have inspired millions of people to rethink their beliefs and explore Christianity beyond the boundaries of orthodoxy. Based on these texts, the ideas of a spiritual lineage from Jesus and Mary Magdalene gain even more credibility. They show that the early followers of Jesus believed in a direct connection with the divine and were willing to challenge the conventions of their time to preserve it. This message remains relevant today, inviting us to seek our own truth and reconnect with the spiritual essence that we all share. The Knights Templar are one of the most enigmatic groups in history. Founded in the 12th century as a religious military order, their official mission was to protect Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land. However, behind this facade of earthly guardians, many believe that the Templars had a much deeper mission: to protect and preserve spiritual secrets and possibly the sacred lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The story of the Templars begins with a small group of knights led by Hugh de Payens. They established themselves at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, a location filled with historical and spiritual significance. According to reports, the Templars allegedly conducted secret excavations under the temple, where they supposedly found artifacts and documents of invaluable worth. What exactly they discovered remains a mystery, but many theories suggest that these treasures included information about the Holy Grail and the sacred lineage. Over time, the Templars grew in power and influence, becoming one of the wealthiest and most powerful organizations in medieval Europe. They were not only warriors, they also managed a network of banks, acquired vast properties, and developed an advanced hierarchical structure. This made them independent of kings and even the Pope in many respects. Their autonomy and wealth began to arouse suspicion, but it was their involvement with the Grail and spiritual secrets that truly fueled fascination and controversy. The connection between the Templars and the Holy Grail is central to many legends. Some stories suggest that the Grail was a physical object, such as a chalice or a sacred stone, and that the Templars found and protected it. Other interpretations, however, see the Grail as a symbol of esoteric knowledge or even the lineage of Christ. In this context, the Templars would be the guardians of this spiritual secret, risking their lives to keep it away from profane hands. The Templars' relationship with the Grail is also reinforced by their internal structure and mysterious rituals. The order had an initiation system that included secret ceremonies, often interpreted as heretical by the Catholic Church. These practices raised suspicions that the Templars possessed hidden knowledge that challenged official religious doctrines. However, the fate of the Templars took a tragic turn. In 1307, King Philip IV of France, indebted to the order, conspired with Pope Clement V to destroy them. On a Friday, October 13th, hundreds of Templars were arrested, accused of heresy, idolatry, and other fabricated crimes. Under torture, many confessed, but the charges were widely seen as pretexts to confiscate their wealth and eliminate a political threat. Despite their official dissolution, many believe that the Templars survived in a covert manner. It is said that some escaped with treasures and secrets, taking them to safe places such as Scotland, Portugal, or even the New World. These survivors would have passed on their knowledge to other esoteric organizations, such as the Freemasons, perpetuating the spiritual legacy of the order. The Templars' connection with the holy lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene also finds resonance in modern theories. Some suggest that they were aware of this lineage and protected it from persecutions, helping it to spread across Europe and beyond. This idea is intertwined with stories of royal descendants and secret documents that could transform our understanding of history. Rennes-le-Château, a village in the south of France, is often cited as a location related to these mysteries. It is said that the priest Béranger Saunière discovered something extraordinary in the local church in the 19th century, possibly linking the Templars, the Grail, and the Holy Lineage. Although the details remain hazy, this story reinforces the idea that the Templars were more than a military order. They were the guardians of something deep and transformative. The Templars also played a significant role in the preservation of esoteric knowledge. It is said that they had access to ancient texts, including Gnostic teachings and mystical traditions from the Middle East. This synthesis of spiritual wisdom and military practice made them unique and perhaps explained their devotion to protecting the Grail, whether it was a physical object or a spiritual idea. In the end, the legacy of the Templars is a reflection of their commitment to something greater than themselves. Their story reminds us that the quest for the Grail, whether as a symbol or reality, is also the quest for truth and connection with the divine. By protecting what they believed to be sacred, they left a legacy that continues to inspire and intrigue. In the heart of southern France lies a small village named Rennes-le-Château, surrounded by hills and stories that transcend time. At first glance, it appears to be just another picturesque spot in the French landscape, but a secret hidden for centuries has turned it into the epicenter of theories about the Holy Grail, spiritual treasures, and the sacred lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. This mystery begins with one man, Father Béranger Saunière. At the end of the 19th century, Saunière was appointed parish priest of the local church dedicated to Mary Magdalene. Shortly thereafter, he began renovations on the building and made a discovery that would change his life and the history of Rennes-le-Château forever. There's no consensus on what he found, but reports suggest it might have been a set of ancient scrolls, a monetary treasure, or even a devastating spiritual secret. Whatever the case, Saunière quickly became inexplicably wealthy. The church, once simple and deteriorated, was transformed into a sanctuary filled with enigmatic symbols. One of the most intriguing is the statue of Asmodeus, the guardian demon, positioned at the entrance. This peculiar choice, along with other symbolic decorations, led many to speculate that Saunière was hiding a powerful secret. He also built a tower called Tour Magdala, possibly as a lookout point or a space for meditation, suggesting that the priest had a deep connection with esoteric history. Saunière's sudden wealth did not go unnoticed. He financed elaborate renovations, acquired properties, and lived a lifestyle that was far beyond what his modest position allowed. This sparked rumors and investigations, but he never revealed the source of his fortune. Some believe he found material treasures, while others insist that his wealth came from blackmail, selling secrets discovered in the scrolls. The scrolls supposedly found by Saunière are a critical point of the mystery. It is said that they contained secret genealogies, possibly linking the Merovingians, a royal dynasty of France, to the lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. This connection, if true, would completely change the historical narrative, suggesting that Christ's blood continued to flow through living descendants. The idea that Saunière had access to this kind of knowledge is both fascinating and unsettling. Furthermore, Rennes-le-Château is located in a region with a long history of heresy and alternative spirituality. During the Middle Ages, the Cathars, a dissident Christian sect, flourished nearby, advocating a dualistic view of the world and rejecting the authority of the Catholic Church. Their brutal persecution in the 13th century left deep scars in the area. Many believe that the Cathars, like the Templars, were guardians of spiritual secrets, including the Grail and possibly the sacred lineage. The connections between the Cathars, the Templars, and Rennes-le-Château are intriguing. Some scholars and theorists suggest that the last survivors of these persecuted communities may have hidden their secrets in the region, waiting for the right moment to reveal them. This would explain why Saunière, centuries later, found something so significant. The legend of Rennes-le-Château has also attracted the attention of secret societies. Groups such as the Masons and the Rosicrucians are said to have explored the region in search of clues about the Grail and other spiritual mysteries. This quest is not just for material wealth, but for knowledge, a type of wisdom capable of transforming human understanding of spirituality and history. Although the mystery of Saunière remains unsolved, his story has inspired a wave of research, books, and even works of fiction. The famous novel The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown was partly based on these legends, popularizing the idea that the Grail could be a sacred lineage rather than a physical object. However, the real enigma of Rennes le Chateau is much deeper than any fiction can capture. For many, Rennes le Chateau is not just a physical place, but a gateway to the mystical. The quest for the Grail, for Saunier's secrets, and for the truth of the sacred lineage is ultimately a quest for understanding the divine itself. This enigma reminds us that the true treasure may not be buried somewhere, but rather within you. In the heart of southern France, in the same region where Rennes-le-Château keeps its mysteries, there existed a spiritual movement that profoundly challenged the religious structures of the time: the Cathars. This community, which flourished between the 11th and 13th centuries, was not merely a religious dissent. It was an expression of a unique and deeply transformative spiritual vision, which many believe is connected to the mystery of the Holy Grail and the sacred lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The Cathars believed in a radical dualism, viewing the material world as corrupt and controlled by an evil principle, while the spiritual was pure and divine. This view put them in direct opposition to the Catholic Church, which defended the sanctity of the world created by God. For the Cathars, true redemption did not come through external sacraments, but through inner purification and direct connection with the divine. This belief resonated with the Gnostic ideas that emerged in the early centuries of Christianity. The Cathar way of life was simple and austere, centered on compassion, humility, and detachment from material possessions. Their spiritual leaders, known as perfects, were considered living examples of this philosophy. They rejected the hierarchy of the Catholic Church and saw no need for intermediaries between the individual and God. This focus on direct and individualistic spirituality made the Cathars seen as a threat to the power and authority of the Church. The connection between the Cathars and the Holy Grail is one of the most intriguing parts of their history. Some theorists suggest that they possessed esoteric knowledge inherited from older traditions, perhaps even from the Templars or early Christian communities. There are reports that the Cathars guarded a treasure in Montségur, their mountainous fortress in the south of France. While many interpret this as material wealth, others believe it was a spiritual secret, possibly related to the Grail or the lineage of Jesus. Montségur, which was more than a military fortress, became a symbol of Cathar martyrdom. During the Albigensian Crusade, a brutal campaign ordered by Pope Innocent III to eradicate the Cathars, Montségur was besieged for months. In 1244, the fortress fell, and over 200 Cathars were burned alive for refusing to renounce their faith. It is said that just before the surrender, some members escaped with the Cathar treasure, perpetuating the mystery about what was truly hidden there. Beyond the possible physical treasure, the Cathars left a spiritual legacy that influenced later esoteric movements. Groups such as the Rosicrucians and the Masons often drew inspiration from the Cathars' mystical vision and spiritual resilience. They were seen as guardians of ancient knowledge, a secret light that survived the shadows of persecution. The Cathars also play an important role in theories about the sacred lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The region where they lived, known as Languedoc, is deeply intertwined with legends about Mary Magdalene and her possible journey to the south of France after the crucifixion. According to these traditions, she would have brought with her spiritual knowledge and perhaps even descendants of Jesus. The Cathars, then, could have been the guardians of this lineage and its spiritual secrets. Interestingly, many of the Cathars' beliefs echo ideas that appear in Gnostic texts, such as the rejection of materiality and the emphasis on inner enlightenment. These similarities raise the possibility that the Cathars were heirs to an alternative early Christian tradition, preserving teachings that had been suppressed by the dominant church. The tragic fall of the Cathars and the destruction of Montségur mark a moment of transition. Although they were decimated, their ideas continued to circulate, often in a hidden manner, influencing Western spirituality for centuries. They became a symbol of spiritual resistance against oppression, and their pursuit of inner purity continues to inspire those who explore alternative paths of connection with the divine. The legacy of the Cathars is also a powerful reminder of the price often paid for challenging established power systems. Their story is proof that ideas, especially those that touch the human spirit, have a force that transcends borders and persecutions. For many, the Cathars are more than an extinct movement. They represent a call to seek inner truth, regardless of external challenge. As the medieval world gave way to modernity, the secrets and symbols associated with the Holy Grail and the possible sacred lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene did not disappear. On the contrary, they were adopted, reinterpreted, and protected by a new type of guardians, secret societies. Groups such as the Masons, Rosicrucians, and others came to be seen as heirs to these mysteries, preserving and transmitting knowledge that dated back to the Templars, the Cathars, and perhaps even Christ's own teachings. The Masons, an organization whose origins are often attributed to medieval stonemason guilds, emerged as a spiritual and philosophical force in the 17th century. Although their symbolism and rituals may seem, at first glance, disconnected from the Grail, many theories suggest that the Masons inherited traditions and secrets dating back to the Templars. The legend that the Templars survived their destruction in 1307, taking refuge in Scotland and influencing Masonry, is widely spread. In Freemasonry, we find symbols that echo the mysteries of the Grail, such as the search for light, the construction of the spiritual temple, and the use of initiatory rituals to reach higher levels of wisdom. Some theorists assert that these practices are closely linked to the idea of the Grail as an inner journey, a symbol of self-knowledge and spiritual enlightenment. Moreover, Freemasonry promotes the idea of equality and fraternity, values that resonate with the beliefs of the Cathars and early Gnostic Christians. The Rosicrucians, another group shrouded in mystery, also played a significant role in preserving these traditions. Emerging in 17th century Europe, the Rosicrucians presented themselves as heirs to hidden knowledge passed on by ancient sages. They combined elements of Christianity, Hermeticism, and alchemy, seeking spiritual transformation and union with the divine. For the Rosicrucians, the Grail was less a physical object and more a symbol of the philosopher's stone, the quest for a spiritual perfection that transcends the material world. These secret societies were also influenced by the Renaissance, an era of rediscovery of ancient texts and ideas that had been suppressed during the Middle Ages. During this period, Gnostic manuscripts and esoteric traditions were revived, and the quest for the Grail and the sacred lineage found an audience eager for deeper meanings. The Renaissance marked the beginning of an era in which the mysteries of the past began to be reinterpreted in the light of rational and mystical thought. As these ideas spread, they began to influence culture, politics, and religion. Some of the greatest thinkers and artists of modern history, from Isaac Newton to Leonardo da Vinci, were associated with secret societies or showed interest in the esoteric ideas these organizations promoted. Leonardo himself is often cited as someone who incorporated Grail symbolism into his works, such as in the famous painting The Last Supper, where the figure of Mary Magdalene next to Jesus is interpreted as a visual recognition of the sacred lineage. Furthermore, the idea that the Grail and the sacred lineage influenced European royal families is one of the most controversial and fascinating. Some theories suggest that the lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene continued through the Merovingians, a dynasty that ruled France from the 5th to the 8th centuries. These kings were often portrayed as having a divine origin, reinforcing the idea that they could be descendants of a sacred lineage. This connection would have been protected by secret societies, ensuring that the descendants remained hidden and safe from persecution. The impact of these theories in the modern era is not just historical or esoteric. They also have profound philosophical and spiritual implications. If the lineage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene truly existed, it would not only be a reminder of Christ's humanity, but also proof that divine connection is accessible to all. For many, this challenges the idea of a centralized religious authority, returning spiritual power to the individual and the community. The 20th century brought an explosion of interest in these ideas, driven by archaeological discoveries such as the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi texts. These findings reinforced the existence of alternative Christian traditions and reignited the fascination with the Grail and its possible connection to secret societies. Books, films, and contemporary spiritual movements have brought these ideas into the mainstream, making the Grail more relevant than ever. These secret societies, with their symbolic traditions and enigmatic rituals, continue to capture popular imagination. They represent a link between the past and the present, a channel for transmitting ideas that challenge the dominant narrative and invite reflection on what it means to be human and divine. The Holy Grail transcends the boundaries of history and legend. It has become one of the most universal spiritual symbols, representing much more than a lost object or a sacred lineage. The Grail reflects the human spiritual journey, the quest for connection with the divine, and the longing for transcendence. Over the centuries, it has inspired mystics, poets, warriors, and seekers to find meaning in their lives and to explore the depths of the soul. In many traditions, the Grail is seen as a vessel, the chalice of the Last Supper, or the cup that collected Christ's blood at the crucifixion. This symbolism of a receptacle extends to the idea that it contains divine power, a link between the human and the transcendent. On a spiritual level, it represents the human heart, the place where the divine can be welcomed and manifested. For mystics and seekers, the Grail is not a physical object, but a state of being, the receptacle of truth, light, and union with the whole. The quest for the Grail is also a powerful metaphor for spiritual evolution. The Arthurian stories, which popularized the Grail myth, depict knights facing trials, overcoming obstacles, and ultimately achieving enlightenment through their quest. These challenges reflect the inner struggles faced by anyone seeking spiritual truth. The Grail, then, is not just a prize, but the process of transformation that occurs during the journey. Furthermore, the idea of a sacred lineage associated with the Grail reinforces the notion that divinity is present in humanity. If Jesus and Mary Magdalene truly had descendants, it suggests that the divine is not something separate and distant, but something that lives within us. This idea breaks with traditional religious structures that often place the sacred out of reach, inviting us to rediscover our own divine essence. The spiritual impact of the Grail is also reflected in its connection with the balance between masculine and feminine. Jesus and Mary Magdalene, as central figures of this myth, represent the sacred union of these two principles. This balance is a recurring theme in spiritual traditions around the world, from the yin and yang of Taoism to the figures of Shiva and Shakti in Hinduism. The Grail, in this context, symbolizes the harmony between these complementary forces, a state that many see as essential for spiritual awakening. Throughout history, the symbolism of the Grail has influenced not only individual spirituality, but also social and cultural movements. It inspired the ideals of chivalry, which combined strength with compassion, courage with humility. These values shaped the ethics of the Middle Ages and continue to resonate in the idea that true strength lies in moral integrity and the pursuit of the greater good. However, the Grail also carries an element of mystery and exclusivity. In many stories, only those who are pure of heart can find it. This does not mean moral perfection, but a willingness to abandon the ego, seek truth above all else, and face one's own fears. This idea challenges all of us to look within and question what we truly seek in life. In the modern era, the Grail remains a source of inspiration. It appears in movies, books, and contemporary spiritual practices as a symbol of hope and transformation. The quest for the Grail resonates with the crises and challenges of today's world, reminding us that true change begins within each of us. It invites us to find meaning amidst chaos, to seek unity in a fragmented world, and to realize that the spiritual journey is a path of reconnection with ourselves, with others, and with the divine. Furthermore, the Grail reflects the human need for mystery and transcendence. In an increasingly materialistic and rational world, it reminds us that there are dimensions of existence that transcend logic and defy explanation. It calls us to explore the unknown, to embrace paradox, and to acknowledge that spirituality is as vast as the universe. Ultimately, the impact of the Grail on humanity lies in its ability to connect us with our deepest essence. It reminds us that the spiritual quest is not about reaching a final destination, but about the transformation that occurs along the way. The Grail, whether as an object, a symbol, or an idea, remains a beacon that illuminates each soul's journey in search of the divine. The Holy Grail, in all its interpretations, is not just an ancient legend or a distant symbol. It is a reflection of humanity's eternal quest for meaning, connection, and transcendence. From the earliest whispers of its existence, through the sacred texts, Arthurian legends, religious persecutions, and modern theories, the Grail continues to capture the collective imagination. But what does it truly represent, and why is its message so universal? The Grail is, first and foremost, a mirror. It reflects the deepest questions of our existence. Who are we? Where did we come from? And where are we going? For some, it symbolizes a physical object lost in history, a chalice or sacred artifact. For others, it is a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment, an invitation to explore the depths of the soul and discover the truth that resides within each one of us. The mystery of the Grail connects to the idea of a sacred lineage, a notion that challenges traditional religious narratives. If Jesus and Mary Magdalene truly had descendants, this suggests that the divine is intertwined with humanity in a deeply intimate way. This perspective reminds us that spirituality is not confined to religious institutions, but is something that flows through all aspects of life. The sacred lineage is also a powerful metaphor for the spiritual legacy that we all carry. If we go beyond the literal interpretations, we can see the Grail and the lineage as symbols of our human potential, a call to recognize our divine nature and live according to it. Just like the knights in the Arthurian stories, each one of us is called to seek the Grail in our own lives, facing challenges, overcoming fears, and discovering the inner light. The influence of the Grail also transcends spirituality, impacting culture, art, and even politics. It has shaped values of courage, compassion, and the pursuit of justice, values that continue to resonate in a world that still strives for balance and harmony. Its lessons are as relevant today as they were centuries ago, reminding us that true strength comes from integrity and connection with the sacred. However, the Grail is not just a symbol of inspiration, it's also a challenge. It challenges us to question the stories we accept as true, to explore possibilities beyond the obvious, and to confront the parts of ourselves we avoid. It invites us to delve into the mystery, not to find definitive answers, but to embrace the process of questioning and discovery. The legacy of the Grail, as explored through the Templars, the Cathars, Rennes le Chateau, and secret societies, reveals a rich history of resistance, resilience, and transformation. Those who sought to protect the Grail, whether physical or symbolic, were defending more than an object. They were preserving a worldview that values spiritual connection, balance, and truth. The impact of the Grail in the modern era is equally powerful. It has become a universal archetype, a symbol that transcends religions and cultures. In an increasingly fragmented world, the Grail reminds us of the unity that underlies diversity, of the divine essence that permeates all existence. It invites us to look beyond divisions and find the sacred in everyday life. As we conclude this journey through the mystery of the Grail, one thing becomes clear: the Grail is not something we can simply find or possess. It is an experience, a process, a path. It is a call to awaken to who we truly are and to live in alignment with that truth. Its message is timeless, resonating in every soul that seeks the divine, not as something separate, but as an intrinsic part of itself. The Holy Grail ultimately reminds us that the pursuit of the sacred is an endless journey. It is a dance between the known and the unknown, between the visible and the invisible, between the human and the divine. It challenges us to look within and beyond, to explore the mysteries of the universe, and to discover the treasure that has always been in our heart. With this, we conclude this narrative, leaving for each one of you the question that the Grail always asks us. What are you seeking? Because in the end, the answer to this question is the true treasure. If you've made it this far, Mind Unfettered, we want to know your opinion. What does the Holy Grail mean to you? Is it a sacred object, a spiritual lineage, or perhaps a symbol of the inner journey? Share in the comments. Your perspective might inspire other seekers in our community. Remember, when we share our ideas, we collectively manifest a deeper connection with what we are seeking. Let's make this space a true sanctuary for transformative ideas. And before you leave, get ready to continue this journey of spiritual mysteries. In the next video, we're going to unravel the Kabbalistic secrets of Jesus. Did he know the hidden power of the 72 names? A fascinating revelation about the hidden teachings of Jesus and his relationship with Kabbalah. Click now on the screen to dive into this extraordinary next chapter. See you there.